Well, a new poll finds nearly half of Toronto voters still don't know yet who they'll be supporting in the race for mayor on Election Day. The Liaison Strategies poll for the National Ethnic Press and Media Council of Canada found Chow in the lead at 13% support, with Matlow and Saunders trailing at 12 and 11% respectively. Well, 43% of respondents were still undecided. The survey of over 1,200 people was conducted from April 21st to 22nd and has a margin of error plus or minus 2.75%. 19 times out of 20. Well, for more on this survey, we're joined by David Valentine, principal at Liaison Strategies. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, just as we said in that intro, I think one of the big things that stands out here is how many people are undecided. Tell us a little bit more about what you found in this poll.
Well, last week we asked Toronto voters how many had made up a decision, and 45% were undecided. So it's actually gone down just a tiny smidge, just outside the margin of error. So a lot of people have yet to make up their minds, and that could be because they're still not following the race, they're still not paying attention, or it could be because there's 50 candidates who are running and they're having a hard time making up their mind.
Well, that was exactly what I was going to talk about, was the fact that, you know, we've got so many candidates, and, you know, for a lot of people, they are just not paying attention. That's what I've been hearing from a lot of pundits, and you know, given the fact that we're still, you know, well over a month away, I'm wondering, do you think that things will maybe ramp up and these numbers are going to change as we get a little bit closer to Election Day? I
think for a lot of Torontonians, they still don't know a lot about these candidates. And it's hard for the candidates because there's 50 of them, right? And so how do you compete for airtime to talk about your policies, to talk about your platform ideas? That's one of the big challenges that they face right now. But hopefully soon we'll start seeing some debates and some opportunities for the candidates to interact. And people will be able to make up their minds a little, you know, they'll have a little more information about who exactly looks good in the mayor's chair.
You know, for a lot of these candidates, it's hard to stand out so early on in this race, and you have to also wonder whether they're saving some of their good stuff for a little bit closer to Election Day so that it's really fresh in the minds of voters when they go to the polls.
I think that's a great point, and one thing I would point out is the candidates who are doing really well right now are people who are really well known to the City of Toronto. Olivia Chow, who of course ran for mayor before, Josh Matlow, who's been a city councillor at City Hall for a long, long time. So it's not surprising that they're doing well. They have their supporters, but also it'll be interesting to see from their perspective if they can maintain this level of support until June, right? Because there's a long way to go.
And, you know, we talked about some of the numbers that we just displayed, and you see, you know, people who are a little bit more well-known, Olivia Chow, Josh Matlow, Mark Saunders. Not very surprising that, you know, these right now might be some of the front runners, because they, for many people, they are household names. They've been in the media, they've been in politics for a very long time. I'm guessing that doesn't, you know, surprise you, and probably doesn't surprise many people that at least this particular poll is showing some of these, you know, more familiar names up front so far.
It doesn't surprise me, and I think the question that I sort of look at is, will some of these lesser known candidates be able to figure out a way to get their name out there? And, you know, time is running out because this is a very short by-election. Usually the mayoral race is almost a year, right? And of course, with Mr. Tory's surprise resignation, this is going to be a much shorter affair. So it's going to be interesting to see what the candidates do to get that airtime. And we've seen some interesting ideas from people so far.
But in terms of those ideas, we're seeing a lot of candidates that are also kind of sharing similar ideas. I mean, many of the candidates are putting public safety, you know, as a top priority, but also things like affordable housing.
That's right. And there's not a lot of differentiation sometimes. Some candidates with very similar platforms, which really does lead to a question of how are Torontonians going to be able to choose. I do think those debates are going to be critical because it's going to be an opportunity for them to see the candidates interact, right? But with 50 candidates, who do you invite onto the debate stage? So these are problems for producers, but also for ordinary people at home to decide how are they going to cast their vote. Is it on the best ideas, or is it on the person that won a City Hall?
I even heard this morning that there is now an 18-year-old candidate that's running for mayor. I mean, it's hard to stand out in such a crowded pack. And so when you look at this poll and moving forward, you know, I'm guessing we're probably going to see some pretty big changes maybe a month from now if we have the same conversation.
I think it's going to be interesting to keep track of this, especially as we see how many people make up their mind. And obviously, a lot of issues in the City of Toronto right now, whether it's crime or affordable housing or just the cost of living. It's a real question which of the candidates is going to put forward a dynamic vision to address those problems.
David Valentine, principal at Liaison Strategies. We appreciate your time. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you.